Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Former Action Guys podcast. Summer's almost here. Perfect timing for custom t-shirts and gear for reunions, barbecues, or your next unit event. You can visit jcramergraphics.com now to grab popular items like shirts, hoodies, and hats to support the show. Doing a group order, reach out and I'll send you a discount code so everyone orders individually. Skip the hassle of organizing money, sizes, and colors. I've been there. It's no fun. Always remember free shipping on orders over $75. Need a custom design? Just let us know. We've got your back. Again, visit jcramergraphics.com. Thanks for the support, and let's get to the show. When were you actually in? When did you join?
2004 to 2008.
Okay.
I did 4.5 because I had to extend to stay in Iraq.
That's a party time. That's an interesting time to be there.
Yeah, that was just we got our asses kicked in where we were. We were just getting our asses kicked. Like we took over from First Recon. They're like, oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it. The 19th, 20th Revolutionary Brigade came in. We had all kinds of foreign fighters suddenly show up. So we're down in the Zidon region in Iraq, and they're like, "Hey, man, this is your space." And that's not usually what we do. And we're like, "All right." So it just became that first deployment was it was baptism by fire by far. And then the second one, they realized that was like I hate to say the end of it, but that was when they realized, like, if they just stop shooting, we'll leave.
Yeah.
So, like, it went from, like, the most nutty Wild West to, like, 6 months later when we went back to, like, nothing happened. It was surreal. Like, all the new guys were like, oh, when's something going to happen? Like, shut up. Like,
yeah, it's weird once you've been in the environment where things are happening. It's like, it's nice that it's a pretty chill day and we can, just kind of not do anything. Like I get it. Like, cause if you've never, that's like, when you haven't deployed yet and you're like, oh, I can't wait to do a deployment. I want to do a deployment. Like, you're doing everything you can to do a deployment. But after you've done like 5 deployments, you're like, fuck, here comes another deployment. You know what I'm saying? Like, just becomes part of the grind, and the toll and the danger of it, like something always happens on a deployment. So yeah, we'll have to get into all that, man. What made you decide to join the Marines?
So I always wanted to join the military. Like, when I was a little kid, I had about 300 GI Joes at my probably like my recruiting best, and I had camis. We played War in the Woods all summer, me and a bunch of kids in the neighborhood, and it was always something I wanted to do. And my mom and dad were just against it from like the get-go, like just like terrified, didn't want to do it, and I think they knew I was headed that way. But then they convinced me, they're like, hey, we'll help you with college. Like, do you want to go to college first and see about that? So I was like, all right. So I ended up going to college for a useless degree, as always, communications. Woo. Yeah. That was fun. So I went to college, and lo and behold, 9/11 happens while I'm in college. I remember being in the MUB, walking through, and all of a sudden all the TVs went over to 9/11, the towers coming down. And I was like, and I don't want to say like that was like my epiphany moment, but I was like, definitely going now.
Yeah.
So I decided then that I was going to get out and go. So I actually applied to be an officer in the Marine Corps because I had my 4-year degree, and they first made me get my tattoos on my forearms removed, which was fine, but that took like a couple months of laser stuff. And then when I finally did that, they're like, hey, it's going to be a year wait. It's like, wait, a year? They're like, oh, yeah, at least. OCS is so booked out now that 9/11 happened. So I was like, well, I'm going to go enlist tomorrow. They're like, yeah, right. And I went into the enlistment guy the next day, and I was like, what do you got? And after some back and forth, I got signed up. I traveled the country in my truck for about 3 months to see, what I was going to be missing, and I shipped out.
Damn, you got your tattoos lasered off for no reason.
Yeah, I was like, you could have told me this first, and I would have kept them. Like, thanks for that. Like,
How much does that hurt?
So it's funny. I don't know if it's going to come up on camera, but I actually got this is right when laser removal was starting. So this is like 2004, 2003. The lasers were this giant. It was a machine they had to roll in with like 3 people. And the guy was all Botoxed up. Like, it was just the start of like the bad point. And he's like, well, if 10 sessions, at 2 works, why can't we do 5 sessions at 10 laser? And he actually burnt the shit out of my arms, like full on laser burn. So I have 2 scars instead of like nice skin, but they were off. I mean, he did the job. So I didn't have to pay for it.
What were the tattoos? Were they like offensive, or there was just no tattoos allowed at the time?
Just Marine Corps is definitely like in the officer program. There was no tattoos below the PT line, so they were just on my forearm. So they're like, you can have them anywhere else you want, like under PT line, but like you are not coming in with them. So I was like, all right, but so I wish you had told me that first because I probably just would have kept them.
I know so many.
By the time I got out,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
By the time I got out, everyone had full sleeves, both arms. Like, I was like, damn it.
I know so many officers that are covered in tattoos, but they keep them under their PT uniforms. Like some dudes are completely covered. I remember I knew this major. He took his PT shirt off one time, and his entire back was done. I was like, holy shit! Like that's a ton of work. Like how? And he was like, yeah. He was former enlisted though, so. It was
I didn't know if I was while I was in enlisted, I didn't know if I was going to flip over and do a Mustang. So I actually got more tattoos, but I just kept them under the PT line. Just made sure that nothing was showing if I was wearing my black silkies. So
when I first came in, the tattoos, like I wanted to get sleeves done. I don't have any now. I don't have any tattoos because when I first came in, I was looking at like different options for doing like a sleeve tattoo. Get something started. But the regulations at that time is when they were all changing, and it was very much like they made it sound like if you got anything, you were gonna fucking not be able to re-enlist. And I was planning on making it a career, so I was like, man, I don't want to like go get something and because it's cool, and then like now I can't re-enlist in like 2 years or something like that. It was very. And when it came out, I was in MOS school, and they were like, no, they were obviously they don't want boots going out and getting tattoos. But they made it sound also like to us that if you got anything, you would get kicked out because of the new order. And it was just because of that, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. That kind of, so I never.
2007, I think it was in the Marine Corps. We had I think a new commandant or a new sergeant major came in, and it was like, it went from like tattoos whenever you want to you are going to start photographing every tattoo you have now so we know if you get another one, and then we're going to bust you for it. So I remember that for like 3 months, the tattoo parlors were like booked solid so everyone can get them in before pictures were taken. You're just like, this is asinine. Like we fight wars for a living. That's what you're worried about?
Yeah, I think that was General Conway. I could be wrong about that though. But
that was a weird time.
I'm for it, man. I'm like, if you want to go get tattoos, I think that's it's like a traditional part of the military, and people that say it looks unprofessional. I think like neck and face tattoos, for sure. Anything that can't be underneath your service uniform, and that's like your service bravos, if it can be underneath the sleeves, then there's no reason not to do it. Like hands, neck, those kind of visible ones, I get it. I understand. But because those look fucking trashy. Come on, let's be honest. There's
100%. Like
99.9%
can't judge. You're like, ooh, but you are getting judged. That's a little much, man.
99% of the time, if you have a face tattoo, you're probably a piece of shit. There's exceptions. But I have I've met very few people that have a face tattoo that aren't some kind of shady character. But yeah, man, that's hilarious. So yeah, 9/11, right? That was a catalyst for a lot of people. Me and my friends, that was the first time I went down to the recruiter's office was that week. I was a senior in high school. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. And it's hard it's hard. It's so crazy to think it was so long ago. The guys and girls that are joining today, you have this like sense of pride that you want to join and stuff, but it's hard to, which I had too, but then 9/11 just kind of like threw that in overdrive. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like a direct attack. And everybody that had considered the military was immediately like, all right, like you said, like, well, now it's time.
I was in 2003 to 2004 to 2008. Most of my enlisted unit was people who had already finished their college degrees, but they were trying to get in. So most of the recon guys that I was hanging out with had either were 3 years into a degree and just left college to join, or had finished their degree and didn't want to wait the year or two. Like, it was crazy how many possible officers, we'll call them, but just bypassed the whole thing. Was like, I want to go right now. Like, we're leaving right now.
I knew a guy, I was working when I was a boot. I was put on this EFSS program, which is like a Jeep with a mortar that got towed behind it. And part of that test team was an infantry element because we were doing mounted convoys and we were doing like all kinds of different testing on the vehicles. And the platoon sergeant that I was under with those guys, he was an infantry dude, and he had a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And he was like, I was working a job basically like in a cubicle, and he's like, I was bored, and this happened. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's go do an adventure for 4 years and then come back. And that's what he did. He was like, he enlisted for 4 years, joined the infantry, did like 2 or 3 deployments, I think all with 8th Marines, and then fucking got out. And he was like, it was hilarious. I always remember this. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get out and use my GI Bill to go get my master's degree and bang college chicks. And I was like, okay. Like, all right.
He's got a plan. You can't fault the plan.
Life plans. But it's like, that's you. When people think that like just morons are joining the Marines or the infantry, it's quite the opposite. You get quite the diverse group of characters. It
was funny because when I went into my the enlisted recruiter, they had you take your GT score, like the ABSAB or whatever, and they give you the GT score, and I had a pretty high GT score, and they're like, oh, you're gonna be an electrical guy, you're gonna be waterproof. I was like, no, 0311. He's like, no, you don't want 0311, you want blah blah blah. I was like, no, 0311, because at that time I didn't even really I didn't even realize there was more in the Marine Corps than just like 0311. Like I was like, we're going infantry. I didn't know there was like 30,000 other jobs. But then even within the infantry, I didn't know I was just like, 0311, that's what I want. He's like, it'd be such a waste. I was like, that's what I want. Write it up now or I walk over to another branch. And so he wrote it up. He's like, this is so, I can't believe you're doing this. I was like, this is why I'm here. Like, I don't want to be, some other MOS going over. This is why I'm signing up.
Yeah, I think my first recruiter was definitely the same way. Like, they were having to talk people out of infantry because so many people were trying to sign up for infantry that it was backlogging. Like if you wanted to do it, it was like, oh, well, you're gonna have to wait a year because there's so many people that just sign, that are actually going through and signing up right now because of 9/11. Or you can do this other job, and it was always like, I don't want to do that other job,
No, I know. I had one of my guys who, when I got out, I owned a gym for 15 years, but he was training for recon. And now he was going in. So now recon is not necessarily like you have to go infantry and then you jump over. Then it became like you could go straight from boot camp to recon. And I was like, hey man, like you got to get your shit together. Cause like, if you fail the swim or if you fail anything like this, you don't want to be, open contract. He's like, I got this. He did not get it. And he rode a desk in Okinawa for 3 years.
Oh, man.
So he went from like trying for the ultimate infantry experience to riding a desk in Oki for 3 years.
So a recon contract, if you don't make it, then you go open contract?
So this is new, and don't quote me. I don't know if they've changed it now, but at the time that he was going in, so they kind of made it like the SEALs, where it's a recruiting tool to get guys to sign up, like, oh, you want to be a badass? Like, sign right here. And what they don't see is the next line's like, hey, if you fail the indoc, you're open contract. Because I remember one day we were getting out of we were at Little Creek training at the schoolhouse, and we were on the sealed pool deck. And we had to leave early for some reason. We got out, and there was just like 300 dudes on the pool deck, and these two SEALs next to us. And we're like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, this is the indoc." We're like, "Oh, this is amazing." He's like, "No, it's not. I think that guy's gonna win, and that guy's gonna win, and the rest of them are going open contract." You're like, "Oh my god," because it's such a big recruiting tool for them to get those people to come in, And then 6 years in the Navy, open contract seems even far more worse. So I think they switched over at some point. Where you didn't have to come through infantry and go over, you could just do it as a contract. Yeah. But again, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I thought, it makes more sense to bring them back to the infantry rather than open contract, unless there's like a crazy need for,
So I will say this kid, he was an interesting one. He graduated Brown with top honors. He was a mechanical engineer. He now works for, I believe, actually NASA. He was an exceptional kid anyway, but he was also, I believe, he was a national wrestling champion at Brown. Like, he was just the most interesting, like, physical and mental kid. So I think his GT score ended up screwing him in the end, where he was just so smart. They're like, yeah, we're not giving you back to the infantry. Like, you're going over here. Like, oh man,
you're going to Seaburn.
Yeah, it was awful. I felt so bad for him.
Man, yeah. they should identify guys like that, you know, in the enlisted ranks. And I know they have the MESEP program where you can go from enlisted to officer, but there's got to be a better way to identify people that have like a little bit more experience, you know. If this guy's, you know, everything you're saying, like, sounds like he's probably a good person to have, like.
Oh, he would have literally been one of those guys you just wanted on your team. Like he was probably one of the funniest human beings I ever met, which people underestimate how much being funny is an important, like, you know, having that dark sense of humor. And I've never seen him down before. I've never seen him, like, you know, so like he was just one of those, like, just indomitable guys that you just wanted on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And he just didn't believe me that the swimming was a bigger portion than it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need to be real comfortable. He's like, I am. I was like, are you though? Like, I'm talking real comfortable.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple people that have said that they were thinking about joining and that they'd like to do like special operations like that. And I'm always telling them I'm not a special operations guy, but I've been around enough dudes and heard the stories where the pool is the great equalizer. Like, you have to be ready to go, you know.
So we had one of my friends, and I'll probably not make some friends off the podcast, but like, so I had a friend who jumped from recon to the SEALs, and he made it. And he came back and he was visiting, and we're like, hey man, so how was it? What's the difference? He's like, I kicked ass on everything until I got to the pool. And he was a collegiate swimmer. And he's like, yeah, the recon pool was cute. The SEAL pool was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But he's like, physically, like, any of you guys could have made it. But if you weren't one of the best swimmers in the, like he's like, you weren't going to make it. He's like, and it wasn't just like, oh, I can do the strokes. He's like, you have to be so comfortable. He's like, I watched guys who were better swimmers than me drop just because they got so scared because of what they would do to them. So he's like, that is the great equalizer, like, where like you can have the best, most physical specimen. And if he is not just good at swimming, but really comfortable with the possibility of, you know, what could happen, then like it just scares people.
So he's saying that even only the top like recon swimmers would make it through that then?
So and when he went through, because this is still when they were so packed, they had more people, but he was like, you know, some of the guys who swim, because we swimming was pretty intense for us, but he was like, for a lot of those guys who were just kind of like mediocre swimmers who squeaked by, he's like, they wouldn't have made it. Like, you had to be a very good swimmer. You had to be very comfortable in the water, and just kind of like, it should have been like second nature. He's like, you would have been like, it was still going to suck real hard, but he's like, that was the hardest part for me by far. Everything else was just like almost not equal, but he's like, just the same. You know, just the.
I can't wait to read the Recon versus SEAL swimming comments on the YouTube channel. It'll be great. So let's hear the debate in the comments.
So we have also the McQuist swimmers, our head top swimmer guys, who was telling me, like, we had one of our guys become a McQuist for recon. You couldn't pay me enough to do that course. Like, that sounded like one of the worst, like, torture chambers ever.
For sure.
Like, he was like, I think he lost 15 pounds of meat in about 3 weeks. Just swimming all day. I mean, he was a big guy going in, like, real muscular, and he looked like a different person. And he's like, I've never hated water so much in my entire life.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the level of it. I can't speak to it, but the swimming was not, for me, it was not the hardest part of the recon training. I grew up swimming. I grew up like in the rivers and lakes in New Hampshire and stuff like that. So that was actually the part that I was thankful for, because that was the part I actually felt really comfortable in. Everything else for me was a little bit harder than the swimming portion. Then we had guys who were flip-flopped.
Yeah.
One of my teammates was from the Bronx, and I don't know if he'd ever really swam before. And he taught himself how to swim right beforehand, and he gutted it out. And he ended up being probably one of the most amazing athletes I've ever met. But it was just one of those things that, like, if either you swam all your life and you're very comfortable, or you just learned, you know, for the SEALs or whatever. Because I was training up pre-SEAL at my gym. And he's like, what should I be doing? I was like, get in the water every day. Just get in the water. Just get in the water. Like, you are physically, like, amazing kid. But I was like, if the water's going to be the place where I can't help you, no one can.
Yeah. That's, that's all I've ever heard from anybody that's done a course that requires that. PJ, SEALs, you know, recon. It's all, the pool is you got to be ready for the pool. And a lot of people are, you know, they say, obviously people that have grown up in a pool do much better, in most of the time. Like swimmers, people that like swam in school, people that played water polo. That's a big one because of the treading. You get so much practice treading water, and you get the technique down. A lot of it's technique. That's the thing, is like I think I can swim, and I'm an okay swimmer, but I never learned like the normal technique, so I'm not like out there, doing a perfect breaststroke or whatever, or side stroke. I never really learned side stroke or anything like that. I just grew up swimming in lakes and stuff, like you said, growing up in Tennessee. But yeah, if you're going to do that, definitely be ready. Other than that, the movements that you have to do in recon training are under load are pretty hardcore as well. So that's another thing that I think people, maybe civilians don't understand. You would hope Marines would understand, but it's like you got to prep your feet for something like that. You got to get out and hike. You got to do stuff.
The ruck runs during the schoolhouse were like just mind blowing, because they tell you what's going to happen. You're like, yeah, I can do that. No big deal. 50-pound ruck, all that stuff. And all of a sudden you get out there and you're like 2 hours in, you're like, oh my God, this is a totally different thing than what I thought it was going to be. Like an endurance event, like you said, like your feet and like everything, like hydrating, like, and it certain things like become more important than you ever gave them credit for. And it's not just, how physical you are. It is some of that gumption, but it is like, do you have the right socks on? I watched a guy like literally just wore the old, issued socks, and it shoot his feet to hell on the first day. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a, bad in dock for the rest of your, 12 weeks there. So no, it was definitely, for me, like the ruck running, I actually was one of my favorite parts, but it was definitely one of the most eye-opening things. We had a really great, I think I had a different experience than a lot of recon guys. I ended up breaking my ribs in the waiting period before going to the schoolhouse, so I actually had a little more time in the training, like the holding tank, and I had one of the best instructors I could possibly imagine, and he really did a great job preparing us, and we land naved and ruck runned at least every day, like 5 days a week. We would do like 1 week of land nav where we'd be running, and he'd make the points, and he'd make sure they're miles apart in Lejeune. So we were running everywhere, and so by the time we got to the schoolhouse, it didn't feel as jarring. Mm-hmm. Whereas we had some guys who got to the holding tank, spent 2 weeks, and just happened to be like the last class before we left, got 2 weeks in the holding tank, and we're in the schoolhouse, and they lasted all of 10 seconds because it was so jarring from, they just got out of boot camp, and then they went to infantry training, which is basically sitting on a ruck for the training part. You don't really start infantry training, from what I understand, until you actually get to your unit, and then you train. Infantry training school for the Marines was hard, but it wasn't that bad. It was as you start to get into your unit, that's when that got bad. So these guys were getting very little time from, when they got out of that to the recon, and then they're at the schoolhouse. We're finning, so amphib week or amphib phase, we were finning twice a week for long distances, and that's one of those things you want to be practicing, just using fins, ruck running, just having nice boots, having the right equipment, stuff like that. Because the one thing I did appreciate about the training was it was a gentleman's course when I went through. And I don't know about that now, because I think it's attached to the infantry schools now, but it used to be its own separate training thing with its own instructors, and it was a gentleman's course. They're like, go buy the nice gear, go get the things that'll make it good for you in the long term that you'll use forever. And so we weren't issued boots, we weren't issued socks, we were, comfortable and, taking care of our feet and doing that kind of stuff. And it made a huge difference in the longevity I think of a lot of the guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they had BRC out in Coronado. And I saw them when I went through my 0861, my 0861 fire support man MOS school is down. Part of the naval gunfire portion was, I don't think it is anymore, but it was down in Coronado. And I remember seeing the guys going through BRC just get beat out there right next to the SEALs. And I was like, dude, they're doing the exact same shit these dudes are doing, running on the beach with the boat, doing everything. And then doing these crazy PT sessions where they're dropping the boat into the bay, paddling far out, hit a buoy and come back, paddle, pick the boat up, run with it for a while, come back, put it back in. And it was like laps in the water and running. And I was like, yeah, that looks pretty rough. But
Okay.
I think they moved from Coronado up to Camp Pendleton. I think all of it is under up at Camp Pendleton now. I could be wrong on that, but they did make some changes. I think around the same time as when they also moved all the snipers into the recon community. That's
so that's
also
what I was going to say. Yeah. So because I was one of the last. So I went through sniper school, and they asked me to teach, and I ended up saying no because I was going to get out. But one of the guys who I went through with, who was an awesome our class commander, he ended up teaching, and he was during the restructuring of sniper school, where that went from Stone Bay to attach to the infantry training school, and that kind of stuff. And he said that was wild in itself. Like that was a total different, compared to being off on your own camp. It's all enclosed, all snipers teaching snipers. And then he said it was a lot more, I hate to say yut, but a lot more people watching you, officers, stuff like that. So a little less on that side.
Yeah, I think it's definitely moved beyond that now too. Having more hierarchy in there. It was pretty controversial when they moved snipers out from the infantry battalions and moved it to the recon community. I don't know where it's at now, but I know at the time it was pretty controversial. Like there was a lot of people that weren't very happy about that. Like, why would we give up that asset in our battalions? But also, if the battalions are still being supported by the same amount of snipers, it might not be that bad of a deal, especially if they have they try to maintain like a command support relationship. Like, oh, hey, anytime 6 Marines goes out on a field op, these are our 3 sniper teams that we choose from, so that you get to know the people that you work with consistently. I think that's obviously important. If you send a random guy out every time, a different dude, then that's not good, because then you don't get to know who to work with, how you can do things and stuff. But I'd be interested in knowing from somebody that's recently been in the sniper community to come on and kind of go through some of the changes there. There's been a lot of changes, man. The rifle range is different. The physical fitness test is different. And
so when I was in, they had us for like 2 years. We did like 8 different physical fitness tests. We were doing a lot of, while the Marine Corps was trying to figure out what they were going to do, we were testing all of them in our unit. And we would be one of the test units, and we would do it, and they're like, okay, this is the score you got, and then they would take another unit, and they would do it with them and see what the difference was. And like, it was wild, because like I feel like every 3 months we were doing some other wild different thing. And by the time I got out, I don't think my last 2 years I had one PT test that was even remotely the same. It was just all everything was all over the place.
Yeah.
They were doing right when we were leaving, they were doing the functional fitness one with the dragging and
the CFT.
Because we did that, like the first day we did that back to back. So we did our normal PFT, rested 10 minutes, and then did the CFT like right after.
Oh fuck.
It was right. I was like, wow, okay, that's a good PT test. And I guess when they did it Marine Corps wide, they did not like that.
Dude, that would have been miserable. I remember the first time I did a CFT at Lejeune. It was like a January morning, and it was like 38 degrees outside. And we started with that 800-meter run, the boots and utes like sprint, basically. And I remember just dying. My lungs were just like so on fire from that, because 800 meters sounds like, okay, that's not that much. So you tend to almost run too fast at the beginning of something like that. And by the end, you're just, that's a tough like run, that 800 meters. It's not tough like to run 800 meters. It's tough to run it in the timeline,
right. The one they want you to. Yep.
Yeah. It was like, that was always pretty killer. Yeah, fuck that, man. Running the PFT and a CFT back to back, that's crazy.
Yeah, we did it once, and they had another unit. They didn't tell us who the other unit was that was always doing it. It wasn't a recon unit; it was some other unit.
They didn't want to shame
and I guess they did not do very well, and so they decided to separate them after that.
Someone from like Supply Battalion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. So when you came in, you at the time, did you say they didn't allow you to go straight to recon, or you did go straight to
No,
recon?
so I was so I was straight infantry. I was training to be an 0311. We were at the 0311 school. So we were probably, I'd say, three-quarters of the way through infantry school. And Gunny Raybon came, and it was the best speech I've ever heard in my entire life. He like walked over, he has sunglasses on. He like just looked over at us. He's like, "Hey, chicks dig recon." Like, oh yeah, all right. And he's like, "None of you are gonna make it." And that was the speech, and he walked off. Like that was the entirety of the speech. I found out later he was not a fan of the speeches and didn't like giving them and didn't believe in them.
Apparently.
But I was like, so like right then, like 50% of the dudes were like, he's right. I guess we're not gonna make it. And then there was that like 10% were like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I'll see you there, man. I'll see you there. And he was at our indoc. So I think like, God, I think I have the numbers in the book, but I want to say like 100 and something sat for the speech, and I think only 50 of us even went to the indoc. So he lost like a ton. So we get to the indoc with like 52, and there he is. He takes his blouse off. Dude's probably 50 something by the look of him, his face. Has the body of a 20-year-old, like just jacked out of his mind. We're like, we're all in big trouble now. Because again, I didn't even know about recon at the time. Like I was just 0311, whatever they do, that's what I want to do. Like I just want to get over there as fast as I can. So they're like, oh, try out for this special operations thing. I was like, that sounds great. Let's try that. I've never, I don't know if I can make it. So I think 52 of us went, and I think 3 of us ended up making the teams out of that 52. By the time we got through everything and chopped up and sent over, and by the time we actually got to the teams, I think 3 of that 52 ended up making it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. They give you like they'll tell you, like, people will say like the school number, it'll be like the percentage of that graduates much higher, but it's like, yeah, but the filtering process before that took care of a lot of people.
So when we actually got to the schoolhouse, so they only did our schoolhouse. So I went to ARS, so I went to the East Coast version. So BRC, ARS. And the big difference from what I was told, because I had a lot of friends on the West Coast, they're like, our swimming sucks because of our waves, because you guys have waves in California. That we were on like the Hudson Bay, and there was like breakers like this big, so like getting the Zodiac out was easy, where they were getting the shit pummeled out of us. But then our land nav was in the middle of the woods in Virginia, with topography that just you looked at the map and you're like, that can't be right. Like there's no way there's that many mountains in that small of a space. And the BRC guy said like they were out in the middle of the desert and like, oh, it's a mile that way, I can see it from here. Where we were like, you had to be a foot on top of the thing in the middle of the mountains and getting your rub and stuff. So there was a lot of difference there, but they were waiting. I think they were waiting almost like 8 months between classes, and then they would gather up a bunch, and depending, like we had some Cali guys with us, some first recon guys with us on the East Coast, and so we ended up, I want to say I have the flag somewhere. I actually, when they shut down ARS, one of my friends was at the last class, and he stole the flag for me because they were just gonna like put it away and like put it in storage. That's so crazy, but yeah, I was like, what? So but I want to say we had a decent rate of passing at the schoolhouse, and most of that was just like, because in the holding tank it was like dog eat dog world, man. It was, you're ringing the bell, someone was leaving every day, like it was trying to break you. They really just wanted to see where your breaking point was. Like we had to be at the pool a lot of days at like 5 or 6 a.m. And then we get out of the pool at 8, and then we had land nav at 9. We'd land nav till like 3 p.m., then classes till like 5 p.m. You had to PT somewhere in there, like either on your own, and then Fridays we come like, and so it was a break off process, and a lot of guys didn't make the break off process. And then when we got to the schoolhouse, you realize it was at such a level they didn't even have to break you off. It was here's the line. You're either going to be on one side or the other. Ready, go. And they were so nice about it, which almost made it worse, because no one was yelling, no one was screaming. Like it was either like you're gonna pass or fail. They could care less. Like so it was almost harder because in the first place, someone's yelling at you, and you're like, "Oh, fuck you," in your head, you're like, "Yeah." And when we got to the schoolhouse, it was just, "Hey, man, we're gonna run this fast. If you don't make this timeline, you're done. Bye." You're just like, "Wait, what?" And
Yeah.
so it was a lot different pace when you got to the schoolhouse. So, but a lot of us had already gotten through months of attrition and kind of already had that. Like I said, the guys who were only there for like 2 weeks, woo, that was a huge quick turnover for them to suddenly be in a position where like, hey, if you're not 20 minutes behind the rabbit, like you failed. Sorry, like that's it. And you're just like, wait, what? Go, gone. So
I,
it was a lot different, the attrition rate, but we still lost. We lost one guy to trench foot, which I believe was a thing since
oh shit.
Vietnam. Like, yeah, like we were at our Hell Week out in the mountains of Virginia was, I think it rained 6 of the 7 days,
It's
and
good
it was
times.
literally the most miserable I have ever been in my entire life. Like I've never been so cold and miserable. But like they're like, seriously, change your socks. You're like, all right, like who doesn't want to? But I guess he didn't, and we watched his feet just slough off for like
Oh.
3 days when we got. Oh yeah, and then he was a great guy, and they're like, hey man, I hope you retread later. Bye, and they sent him home like just trench foot. Like, holy crap, man! I
Yeah.
didn't think that was a thing anymore.
Yeah, you can't become a liability, right? Like, ugh. I think a lot of people I've talked to that have done different kind of selection courses, that's a common theme is that it's very much there's no yelling. There's no reason to yell. Like you're beyond that. That's boot camp stuff, that's like entry level stuff. At this point, they expect you to show up and be ready to go for whatever it is that they're asking you to do. And you either do the task or you don't do the task, like you said. And if you don't do the task, Roger, annotate it. And if it's a failing event, then you failed or, whatever. I mean, that's something I've also heard that other people say it plays mind games with them, when all their messages come through like a whiteboard or something like that, rather than someone telling them. And it's just like, check the board, see where you got to be and what time. And it's, people overthink directions or start thinking for themselves.
Well, yeah, especially in the pipeline, because you come from boot camp in Marine Corps, which is just its own little slice of heaven, where there is not a moment of your life where someone is not either yelling at you or just, I mean, in your face, just making sure you're doing exactly what they want. And then, you get to infantry training, and that was just a step down. I mean, I met some of my instructors at the infantry training were like the best of the best from infantry, but they were some hard men. I mean, they're coming off their like you said, like fifth, sixth deployment. They were just burnt, and so like they didn't put up with shit. So like you get this like they yelled, but it definitely wasn't much. And then with the holding tank was pretty vicious. And then you get to a place where no one's yelling. You're just, hey man, you're not awake and you're not in the classroom at this time. That's fine. We don't care. Like,
Yeah, they're giving you
see
enough
ya.
rope to hang yourself.
Yeah, right. And some guys did. Some guys would like with Libo, like, hey man, you got to be home at 9. Like I mean, it was awesome being in Little Creek, on weekends and stuff, and Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
But it was real easy to get yourself in trouble out in town, and like, like seriously, like this is you guys make the right choices, and we'll see you back here, and that's the guys we want. Or you're gonna hang yourself out in town, and you're not gonna make it back in time, or you're just like, wow, it was almost like a total like a 180 from where we started in the training.
That's like something they do in OCS as well. After like I think 5 or 6 weeks or something or maybe it's 3 weeks. They start letting them have either a day off or the weekend off, and they can go out on Libo from OCS. And part of that is that like, hey, if you can't go out and like control your drinking, or you can't do, like you said, follow the rules that are put down, then we don't need you here. Like you can move along to something else because that's not what we're looking for. So after you finish that initial reconnaissance training, you go back to second recon, and then do you go straight to schools, or what's the pipeline there look
So
like?
so I got back, and we were already in a workup. We had already started our next workup for our next deployment. We were taking over for first recon. And so I came back from school, and I was immediately put into a team, and we are working up for Iraq. Here we go. Like it was like, I want to say it was like 6 months by the time like we got going. I met my platoon sergeant, who was literally one of the most fantastic people I've ever met, but also just a hell of a guy. And reconnaissance Marine. He ended up winning Force Team Leader of the Year like a couple of years back. So they were bringing the Force guys who were like Team Leaders of the Year, the top operators, down as our platoon sergeants to train the next generation. So we got these guys who were just on a different level, like right off the bat, from anything we've seen yet in the Marine Corps. Because I mean, this is like the top dogs coming down training us. And I ended up getting Bobby Rivera, who I think is still training a lot of the MARSOC guys, or the Raiders now, I guess, the Raider guys right now, who's still down in Lejeune doing a contracting job. But he was by far and away the best platoon sergeant of any of them that I got to see and deal with. I ended up getting placed in, I hate to say a dream team, but I got put in a guy, one of my teammates, his first go around, he just retired out of the Raiders, I want to say a couple months ago, and he was instrumental in directing the Raiders and setting them up. They sent him with other units, higher tier units. He did, I want to say, a stint at Quantico in one of their teams for, I want to say, 4 years, came back, brought all that. So, like, this was a guy who was going places. Like, he was, boot like me, but he was just already on a different level. Like, we knew from the get-go he was going to be amazing. Like, he was just really good. My team leader and my ATL had just gotten back. One had just been in so I think that's actually a thing we can't talk about. He had just gotten back from a South American place, or a southern place, that doing crazy stuff. That was after Iraq, where he actually got blown up in an IED. So we actually called him, his nickname was Scotty Boom for getting blown up. So he was already pretty well acclimated to the whole thing. So we just got this team that was just shit hot, and it was a dream come true. And then we started our workup. We probably did, I want to say, like 5 months, 6 months of like intense workup stuff. And then we went to Iraq for the first time.
What did the workup look like? It's obviously, this isn't the first deployment to Iraq, so now we've got some lessons learned here. Were you guys applying those?
No, because, like, to be honest, like, so for our unit, like, really, there wasn't a whole lot going on for, like, the Battle of Fallujah, the taking the cities, the infantry, God bless them, like, I couldn't do what they did. That was amazing shit. But that wasn't what a lot of the special operations were doing, the Sneaky Pete stuff. And so when we took over from First Recon, nothing had happened really. Like, there wasn't a whole lot. They're like, oh, it was, woo! Like, they were excited, put it that way. Like, they left smiling. And so our workup, especially under Riv, we shot 8 hours a day for probably, I'd say, the first 4 months of that, 6 months. Like, we shot until we didn't want to shoot anymore. Like, just the days where you're just like, we're always fun at first, where you're super excited, we're getting on every weapon system, and by like 4 months in, you're like, whew, another shooting day. All right.
But how good at shooting were you by that point?
Amazing compared to where we started. And that's what he was a huge. So he was chosen. Like, I think he was one of the top 10 rifle shooters in the world at that point. Like, he got brought on for, I think, either Call of Duty or Call of Duty had a competition that he was invited to shoot at. Like, I mean, he was on that level where, like, when they do the beep test stuff, he could do the 1 second transitions where it's like rifle shot, pistol shot, like within 1 second. We're like, show it to us, and he did it. And you're just like, oh my God, like, just, he was on a different level. So he wanted all us to be on a different level. And so even as a platoon, because that was the other crazy thing is, I don't know about other units, but our platoon trained only as our platoon. So what we did was not what every other platoon did. So every platoon sergeant ran their platoon pretty much almost independently, because we only went over to Iraq with 120 shooters, maybe, like, I think it was like 6 platoons, and then maybe a QRF. So we were not a huge unit. So we were very autonomous as far as our training. So we had 20 guys in our platoon. So for 20 guys, we were pulling up with we would pull up with 5 tons or Humvees with trailers for enough ammo for like a battalion shoot. And you're just like, oh, it's going to be one of those weeks, huh? We'd sit up, we would like, but again, it was different as we get to go home every night. We would just establish a watch and we just shot all day, every day. Did the CQB house a lot. Like that was actually one of my favorite things too. And so we did a lot of that. And then Lejeune's its own kind of hell as far as terrain. So we did crazy amounts of land nav as like patrolling and like we did a lot of mock missions where we would go out for 3 to 5 days and then just hide in Lejeune and like go spy on people and they would try to find us and stuff like that. Like just full on just mission profiles where we were doing exactly what we might be doing in Iraq and stuff like that. So, but we get to go home every night. It was from what my experience in the Marine Corps, I think was a lot different than say like an 0311s or like another guy, like, cause like we were treated like gentlemen, like we PT'd on our own. There was no PT suddenly. It was like, hey, as a team, your team is responsible for your PT. Like we're not going to PT as even a platoon. We'd come together every once in a while, but like so we were PTing in groups of our 5 guys and making sure everyone was shit hot and making sure everyone was good. But it was a lot more small than I think people were expecting. Because again, it was either on platoon level or it was a team stuff. So there was weeks that we only saw either our team and then our platoon sergeant as a liaison, and that was it. That was our training for, because we were running around in small teams. So that's how we trained a lot of the stuff. It was like the Halcyon days that like you want to go back to, like, like when people talk about like the good times of their military career, like that team, I couldn't put together a dream team more than that. Like I liked my teams after that, but that team ended up just being the best team I could possibly want with the best people. Like we had so much fun together. Everyone was there. No one was ever like sad and dour. Everyone was always upbeat. It was a very funny group. Like it was just everyone jived with each other really, really well in that really heartfelt way where like you feel like you met some brothers real quick. But yeah, we spent a lot of time just shooting and just doing land nav and stuff like that. Just like you said, like long haul rucking. Like good God, I was the point man, so I had to do all the routes and stuff like that. So a lot of just patrolling and making sure you have the skills. They took all of our technology away. Because if you can do it with a map and compass, you can certainly do it with a GPS and all that stuff. So we did most of our training as far basic as you possibly could get, and then he would right before we went, he would introduce like, okay, now here's your GPS, here's your this, now get it on, and so our training for it, I felt like we were prepared as well as any unit could possibly be for what we thought was going to happen or what was happening currently.
Yeah.
We weren't taking Fallujah. We weren't taking a city. In theory, we were supposed to, what recon is, like we just talked about with the snipers, is we are helping other units. That is, our mission set. And we get over there and they're like, hey, the Zidon in Iraq, which is like just like the nutsack of Fallujah, is yours. We're like, what do you mean it's ours? Like, you own it. It's your AO. Like, you're gonna hang out there and do everything there. And that place was its own different world. They were so scary there that Saddam Hussein wouldn't even send his elite troops into there because they were so tribal. And I think the big problem with Iraq and a lot of these things is they had no essential problem with us. Like, they didn't have anything against us, but they're like, hey, there's a line here. And if you cross that line, you're on our territory and we're going to fucking kill you. And we're like, well, we got to come over. Like, don't do it. And so I think some of the fighting we did was not even over like ideals. It was just like tribalism. Like, hey man, you're in our backyard. Get out. Like, yeah. And they knew that place. It was the most sucking mud in between 3 roads that you could drive on. So there was 3 ways in and that was it, so they knew every goat trail. They knew everything about it. They ended up bringing the 1920th Revolutionary Brigade, and we had it out with them for 6 months in a way that, like, I guess no one was prepared for at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We got there, and IEDs were an occasional thing where it was like, hey, like every once in a while, an IED will go off. Don't be ready. There was a point, I want to say for 4 months, that every other day, one of our trucks got hit with an IED. Every other day.
And this is still before up armor.
Yeah. Oh, this is when they're bolting shit on like we're fucking orcs, and it's just like a normal Humvee weighed down with, all this armor that's not supposed to be on there. So when you gun it, it just makes a noise and goes no faster. And like it was wild. And that stuff was starting to come over. That stuff was starting to get there right when we got there. That stuff was starting to be put in. But it was wild. It was like this, it was like another universe compared to what we were told and were kind of expecting.
Yeah.
Everything's really calm. Like there's some bad people. At the same time that we're fighting the tribalists, they're fighting these foreign fighters. Like there was heads on spikes. Like there was literally dudes who would come in from, Syria and all these other places, and foreign fighters, and they told them the same thing. You cross this line, we kill you. They didn't believe them. And all of a sudden we'd be driving and there'd be a head on a stake. And you're just like, yep, they're pretty serious here. So owning an AO versus your whole training being about being an autonomous dark unit where like you don't really hold land. You're going in for a mission. You're coming out for a mission. It became something completely different than I think what everyone was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not a warfare that really we were any better at than say the infantry or anybody else, because it's basically drive a Humvee to this point, take over a house, spend a week there, come back.
Yeah.
And it became a turkey shoot for us for a while, where we were getting hit with IEDs basically every other day.
Were the IEDs like were they just random attacks, or were they using them to like initiate like a complex ambush or something like that?
No, so they were just random. Okay. They were literally like, so they would tell everybody in the village, hey, there's an IED, don't drive on this road because we don't want to waste it. And so we'd be driving, and like there was never a follow-on. Because that was the thing I was the intel guy for my platoon, so like I had to watch all the videos of all the complex ambushes other places, like in some of the cities and stuff. But for us, it was just they just wanted us dead, and they knew that they wouldn't win. Because the other problem with our unit being an AO unit is we look like no other unit at Fallujah, at Camp Fallujah. We look like a gypsy caravan of Humvees with all these rocks. Like my Humvee actually had a Sasser instead of a machine gun mounted on the turret. So we had a 50 cal Sasser with a red dot. So like we look like no other, like vehicles driving around. And so they knew when we were coming specifically, because we were always in a 5 vehicle, convoy, bristling with everything, but we'd have to go out, we'd have to come back. So they were just hitting us left and right and watching from their houses, like, which almost made it worse. Because again, like it was a battle where there was nobody to fight, but you just kept getting punched in the face over and over. And so it really made it so there was not a lot of victories at first. Like there wasn't a lot of like, because no one was giving us missions. Let's say that no higher up was like, hey, like there's a mission here. I want you to go over and do this and come back. When we first got there, it was like, oh, we have to clean up this AO. And it's like, okay, how do we do that? Like that's not usually our modus operandi. And so we did as best as we could, I want to say, for what we did. Like we would do like knock and talks, like huge sweeping knock and talks. But again, we don't know these, and again, everyone pictures Iraq and they think desert. We're next to the river, so it was lush jungle, and sucking mud, and like it was a totally different, like even like what we trained in out in California when we went to 29 Palms. Nothing like 29 Palms. It was this muddy, very moist jungle environment for right next to the river. Yeah. And so that we couldn't catch them. We couldn't do a whole lot. And so we got the shit beaten out of us for a while. There was like a 3-month stretch. So I wrote the book about my platoon ended up having about 25% casualty rate. We got hit a lot. with IEDs. Like one IED took out 5 of our guys. A little bit later, an IED took out my ATL and my TL. A little bit later, so it was just these crazy amounts of. Oh, I'm sorry, not my ATL. My ATL became my TL. It took out one of my best friends who ended up losing his leg from it, and my TL. And so we were fighting a war that really wasn't like we weren't getting anywhere because we didn't know who we were fighting. It was like that real subterfuge where like they were hiding well enough for their blow us up that they weren't going to come out and play. And so I think it was very tough on us. We kind of changed tactics, I'd say about halfway through, where we started baiting them more, which sounds weird, but like it actually started working. Where we actually stripped our trucks down and pretended to be like a green unit who just got in there. No, like 2 heavy guns for 5 trucks. None of our like everything stripped down to just basically like basic bones. And we would go wait out in the field, like we were just like hanging out, and they would come to us sometimes, and that worked a little better. Or we'd set up. We'd leave sniper teams out and then drive-bys, and then like they'd follow us, and then the sniper teams could get. So like eventually we kind of caught on to how we were going to be able to do it, but it was definitely not the training that I think we had been gearing up for and stuff like that. Like again, like for us, like most of our stuff was either CQB or sneaky Pete shit at nighttime. You never see us, in and out, do something. And then here we are, middle of the day, convoys driving down 1-lane roads that have 1 in, 1 out, and so it was a lot different, I think, for us than what we were expecting.
Were you guys doing any kind of reconnaissance though? I mean, to try to identify, HVTs
No.
and stuff like that? No.
Compared to how much we trained that way, no. We were like this weird, I'm gonna say hybrid unit where we would own AOs, so some platoons would have to go and do like infantry stuff, like, hey, you're going to sit in this house for a week and you're going to do patrols around it. And then the other guys would either be on like a 15-minute leash for like CQ, like taking down somebody. So we would get this. So we had like these 2 weird missions that were like kind of concurrently moving, where one platoon would be out just sitting in a house knock and talking, and the other platoon would be doing like a raid on a known guy. Hey, the guy just turned on his cell phone. You have 5 minutes, go. And we'd be taking off doing that. And so it was this weird back and forth between the two. And I think the other bigger problem is it was at the exact same time that all the other units, SF, the Rangers, Delta, like a lot of them were also having to kind of turn it. So I remember we were put on a mission for this. We were waiting for this guy to turn on his phone. We're going to do a hard hit. And we waited 3 days, 15 minutes from our, 15-minute leash, full battle rattle, just waiting for him to turn his phone. He turns on his phone. We take off. We get out to the front gate. They're like, hey, turn around. Delta just did the hit. Oh. So we're like, what the fuck? So we turn around, we go home. And then it started, and it started happening more and more. And then there was this one mission set where it was nutty. It was literally like, they're like, hey, you're going to take your company. Company. We're going to take your company. So we took 3 platoons up to this place, Tartar. It was like this big, beautiful lake area where they all had Saddam all had his lake houses, like their vacation houses. But we get there and we are within 2 clicks of the SEALs, the Rangers, SF, and Delta shows up. And everyone's literally asking everyone, hey, man, you got any missions? Hey, man, you got any missions? Like we're like crackheads trying to look for like stuff to do.
That's
so
crazy.
It was just it was the big, like, we all just sat there, we're like, are we going to do anything here? Like, is everyone like, so everyone was just looking for stuff to do because there wasn't as much of the thing that I guess we had been trained up for that everyone was expecting.
Yeah.
They were realizing that it was easier to hit us and then walk away than have it out with us. Cause I mean, for a platoon and even like for a 5-man team, our unit, or especially my platoon, we're carrying more firepower for 20 guys than most infantry battalions were carrying. Like as far as like the machine guns and like we're loaded out. We're waiting for a stand-up thing, and they know it.
Yeah.
So they were just hitting and running us for about 7 months. We just got knocked around like bad.
That story where you said you guys were on you were waiting and then getting ready to go on the mission, and then you get the call that Delta took it, is the most recon story ever. Recon is the most overworked, underutilized unit, because they don't fall under SOCOM. A lot of people don't even really see them. They're not visible on like the manning charts for SOCOM and an AO and stuff like that, or whatever. They're just not like, if it's like, oh, you have SEALs and Rangers and all these people that like SOCOM is used to working with. Well, why would they choose the recon team to go do something when they have all these other guys that they've worked with all the time? That's why so many recon guys go over to like SF when they get out, or now it's probably a little different because of MARSOC. That helps, because you can transition to that. But man, I remember one time on one of my Mews, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, for those that don't know, it's a deployment on ship. The recon guys are just constantly training for what we call GoPlat takedowns, these gas and oil platform takedowns, and VBSS, the visit, board, search, and seizure, where they're pulling up next to the boat and taking it over. And actually, there was a recon team that did the Magellan Star, and they actually got to take down actual pirates off the coast, which is super sick. That's a cool story for them to tell. But however, on my Mew, there was a boat that needed to be boarded, and our recon team got all spun up about it to get ready to do this boarding. And then the Navy Commodore was like, nope, we're going to send in our Navy team, our Navy boarding team, and like stood down the Marine recon team. I was like, oh, you guys got overridden by the Navy, man. Like, not even a special operations team, not even like SEALs or anything, just their normal ship team. Cause it was like, I don't know if it was considered a hostile boarding or not. I don't think it was, but it was just like, damn, dude, all that training and they never get to do it,
I mean, that's my friend who just got out of the Raiders. He said that it finally, like, when they finally got that, I guess they are getting a lot more recognition over there finally in SOCOM and stuff, because I mean, like, the cream of our crop, like, I think that just takes one. I think there's some, if you go into the Marine Corps, you're a different breed already. Like, there's just something wrong with you. There's just, you're a little off. And then, like, to go up to the special operations of that level, like I met some guys who just like they're characters, like they're just so like unreal and like amazing, and just indomitable people. And again, but we are usually just stuck onto our own, like, it's inter-Marine Corps. And so it's very hard to get the recognition, and it's very hard to get like oh, that's cute, but like, this guy over here, like, oh, we did so much. Like, we shot so much CQB. And then it was sad how little we actually got to use it, and how little we actually were out on true reconnaissance stuff, where we were doing like we did get to do this one bridge though, where we actually got to do the depthing sounds and stuff, and the water was running way higher and faster than it had been a day before, and it was like an absolute nightmare. But we're like, wow. We're in the water, like, we're doing what we're supposed to do. Like, that was, I think, the only mission we all felt like we came home. We're like, recon. We did it. We actually did, like, a recon mission.
We touched the water. We're good.
Yeah, we touched water. We were doing it all. Like, no one knew we were there. Everything went well.
Yeah, it's a bummer for those guys. And recon should definitely not have their own AO. The whole point is they come in to reinforce a unit, provide this reconnaissance element to a unit, and provide some direct action capabilities if necessary. So to like take you guys and put you in your own AO like you're a standard infantry battalion is such a misuse of your skills. And again, it just it goes back to this is a time before MARSOC, when you're talking about, or maybe Det 1 was getting stood up around that time, but Recon wasn't part of SOCOM, so they weren't getting the missions that they probably should have. And I'll let you finish, but I think it was David Walton was on, and he was like, what's the hardest, for a lot of one of the sayings in the Army is like, what's the hardest part about Army Special Forces selection? And the Marine, going through your Marine enlistment beforehand, because there's so many Marines that go from the Marine Corps over to like SF because they're getting a lot of the missions because they've been around for a while, they're well established and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It just I think it's also wild. So and again, I don't know how much this has changed. I was out 2008, so it's probably changed. But like the way our officers work was also super wild because you got these operators who've been in for at this point, I think Riv, when he was getting out, my platoon sergeant, he's been doing this for 14, 15 years. He was, Force Team Leader of the Year, probably one of the best shooters. Like, and then he has this boot Marine Corps officer coming in from the infantry, not recon, the infantry, coming over. He's like, "Oh, I'm your new platoon, commander." It's like, that's weird.
Don't they, at the time, did the officers go through ARS or BRC? So
the platoon level did, but our sergeant majors, some of our others didn't. Yeah. So it seemed like a crapshoot. So I had what ended up being, I think, again, I just got the luck of the draw. Some of the best officers I could imagine who listened to their enlisted counterpart. And, because there's this, the super operator who's been doing this for 16 years and you've never done this. And the best officer I ever had, literally his speech was, "I'm here to be an umbrella for you guys to keep the officers off you guys, and you guys can do your job." He's like, "That's my job. I'm not here to plan. You guys run your team, do the things you're going to do with, your platoon sergeant. I'll just be kind of doing the PowerPoints kind of thing." And it worked. He was our team. That was the first deployment. Our team was shit hot. Our platoon was fucking shit hot. Everything ran really, really well. We all come home from first deployment. We get an entire new crop. Our sergeant major changes out. So our battalion sergeant major changes out and stuff. And all of a sudden, like, haircuts are now important. Like, we had to stand for 3 hours because our hair was out of reg. And you're just like, what is going on here? And so it was like the Marine Corps and Recon were like fighting for like the spirit of it. Like, they want yut. One of our guys came out and after, he's like, "Just so you know, you're not special." Like, man, we went through all of this just to be told by you, some guy who's never done it, like, we're not special now. Like, yeah. So it was a wild. They didn't know what we were, and I don't think they had a clue of how to use us sometimes for all our mission sets.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before. People say that you're not special. Like, yeah, I got it, whatever, man. Like, but I'm doing a job that you're not doing, or other people are incapable of. Like, I don't know. And people will argue about grooming standards and everything else is, to the end of the day. I was never into, I had my hands in my pockets constantly. I didn't get my hair cut. Once I became like a staff sergeant, once I became like a staff sergeant, I definitely didn't get my hair cut every week. It was like every other week, every week and a half or so, which is crazy. I know regular people are like, that's like a normal haircut cycle. The Marine Corps, that's crazy.
No, it's like every 3 days if you got long hair that grows quick. Like, you better be.
How dare you show up with hair longer than, a millimeter on your neck. But all I cared about was like show up and be really good at your job. Like, that's what I can if you can't be like a field Marine, where you show up and you may not have a fresh haircut. You like to keep your hands in your pockets. You got the gunny rolls on your sleeves and stuff like that, and suck at your job. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you suck at your job and you're trying to be this like field Marine guy, you have everything going against you and you're just a piece of shit at this point. But if you show up and you're really good at your job, and you didn't get a haircut for Monday, well, I'm gonna probably let that slide a little bit. Like, go take care of it, but because you're a team, you're good at what you're doing. I don't care about that stuff as much, But opinions differ, and I understand that, like, in larger units, like if you're talking about an infantry battalion or like a maintenance regiment or something like that, a logistics regiment, you're talking about a lot of people, and you have to set some kind of standard that everyone has to follow, and it becomes a lot of like, mass punishment and stuff. But I think as these teams, like you were talking about earlier, you guys were training in a small team. You guys were really a small team element. I think when you start getting down to that level, and if the Marine Corps is letting you spend millions of dollars, or they're spending so much money on your training and doing all these things, like there should be some level of like professionalism. Like, hey, just come in and do your job. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, so I got two stories. No, I got two stories. So we were in Iraq the second time. So the first deployment, I will say this again, I couldn't ask for better officers or anything. We were getting hit all the time. We were fighting all the time. They let everything go. Like, unless you were doing something really dumb, whatever. Yeah. The second deployment, nothing was happening. Like I said, like they were smart enough now that they realized they can't, if they just stop fighting us, we'll leave. You know, the politicians will get us out of there. So they stopped fighting us. So then it became like the bureaucrats start like taking over again. And all of a sudden, so we're out on a 3-week op, basically just camping out of our trucks for 3 weeks, whatever, doing, it was like 2 sniper OPs that were rotating and then like another patrol thing. So we're like 2.5 weeks into this. And, all of a sudden like, oh, we're getting a visit from, your battalion sergeant major, or I forgot who it was, but we're like, all right, cool. So he shows up and he's just red-faced. And we're like, what's going on? All of a sudden, like, they're talking about relieving some of our platoon sergeants and our officers. And we're like, what is going on? We hadn't shaved in 2.5 weeks. And shit. It was like, and this is like, we are caked in dust. We are like, it is the most unsanitary, like, and you're just like, I get it. I go back to base camp, I go back to Camp Fallujah. I'll shave first right off the bat. I'll take a shower because I want to, But like, we're literally like, but that was all they gave a shit about. Like at that point, you're just like, this is asinine. Like this is where your priorities are at this point in time.
In the middle of a war. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
100%.
I remember being in Sangin on my advisor team, and we were the last advisor team in Sangin. And this is in Afghanistan. And we had 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines there on our base with us, our FOB with us. And because we were the last advisor team, the whole point was that the Afghan army was supposed to be taking over this area. And there was supposed to be a limited American presence. So the 3-4 didn't really have a lot to do. They were never leaving base. It was a lot of just sitting around, honestly. And it sucked for them because the whole point was they didn't want Americans going out. They wanted the Afghans to take over. And, but my advisor team would go out all the time with the Afghans. Like we were out constantly. We were still doing missions and stuff like that with these guys. And I remember the company gunny or something from 3-4, one of the companies that was with us, came over and was like, you guys need to have someone start pulling weeds and blah, blah, blah. We're doing like area beautification. And we're like, no, we're not, dude. Like we have other priorities, like this, you guys can do area beautification and do police call and all that. Like, what are you talking about? We're going on a operation tomorrow with the Afghans. Like that is not of our concern right now. And it's just weird. Like when you get to that kind of point in a deployment or in a war or whatever, where that becomes like a priority. You know what I'm saying? Where guys are not going on none of these guys are going on operations. Sometimes we'd have them if it was like if we were expecting like a bigger operation with the Afghans, sometimes we'd have 3-4 stand up a QRF and have those guys ready to go. But we never called them. We never called on them or anything like that. So it's just like what you were saying. It becomes more garrison. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, I don't know. The fact that we got to that point, it was just crazy. That was one of those wars where both Iraq and Afghanistan, where it became like the deployments were like, oh, this is how we always do it. Like, of course we're deploying next year because why not? There was no like, what are we doing to end this? We're just deploying
in the right way. Or yeah, whatever. I mean, like, because we were helping train at one point. We were helping train Iraqis. We went with we did one mission with the Iraqi Special Forces who were amazing. Like those are some hard dudes. But the rest of them, I remember, like we were talking like they wanted nothing to do with missions or doing anything. Like they were like, yeah, stay, don't ever leave. You're like, oh no, this is not where we want to be at this point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had that too. I mean, you definitely had like the Afghans. Honestly, it became uncomfortable sometimes because we'd have to explain to them why we couldn't help them because, hey, this is your fight now. No, we can't bring. They're telling me I'm the conduit for this. I'm sitting here talking to the Afghan sergeant or first sergeant saying, sorry, we can't bring in a medevac helicopter for your guys because they want you guys to exercise your medevac capabilities. We had a guy shot in the stomach, an Afghan, I can't remember if it was a soldier or a police officer, shot in the stomach. And they were like, no, we're not bringing in a bird for him. Like, you guys got to medevac him. And that medevac meant driving from, I think, Sangin to like Lashkargah, which was like, I believe, over an hour Humvee trip. He's going to ride in the back of a Humvee on these roads for an hour with a gunshot wound in a gun. And I was just like, this is so fucked up, man. Like, I get it. I know what we're trying to do here, but imagine telling that to these guys and then having to go back to work with them. You know what I'm saying? They're like, they would get very upset, like if we were trying to help them out, or they wanted us to help, and then we wouldn't do something, or we couldn't do something. Because I told a lot of people, a lot of people shit on them, the Afghans, and some of the Afghan soldiers, like, oh, they're no good, or they don't want to be here, and it's like, yeah, dude, we do our 7-month deployment or a year deployment, depending on what kind of unit you're with, and then we go home. And then we get time off, we can hang out with our family and go on vacation and then do some more training and then maybe come back. These dudes live here. Like, Sangin is one of the worst places in this country, and these guys are stationed here. This is their base, and they're out here every day dealing with the Taliban and foreign fighters and local, fighters. And, like, of course, after a while, they're like, fuck this. Like, wouldn't you if you were fighting every day and you're like, dude, every week someone's getting blown up or something like that? After a while, it's like, nah. So I had some sympathy for the Afghan fighters. But yeah, I don't know how we went down that tangent. The garrison talk. But yeah, so when it gets garrison, like, it's just like, we should be questioning what we're doing.
Especially with some of the units where going there, like, oh, can these not be better used elsewhere? Can we not, have people doing the job, or like, because again, like the Iraqis did not want, I think Afghanistan, there was a little more, but Iraq didn't seem to have almost any, like, we were in a part of, they resigned en masse when we said we were leaving. They just were like, we're done. And you're just like, what do you mean you're done? They're like, yeah, we're just not going to do this anymore. They're like, oh God, this is like, this is going to be tough for you guys because we're not going to be here. Like,
that's kind of what happened with Afghanistan too. After that last unit pulled out, the whole country basically folded within a few days because the Afghan soldiers are like what? Like, we're gonna fight these guys and by ourselves? Like, I have one magazine of ammo and my pay hasn't gotten to me in 2 weeks. Like, what are you talking about? I have no food.
Yeah, no, it was a lose-lose situation. Kind of, I hate to say for everybody, but like there was no good end game. Where, because as far as again, I can just go for Iraq. Like, a lot of them didn't understand, and this is what I try to tell people: like, they didn't understand what Iraq was. If you talk about the United States and defending the United States, I feel like everyone in the United States can understand that. Like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go defend our country. And I remember how many talks we had, because I was part of the Intel thing, and I got to do a lot of the interviews. And at the end, you're just kind of bullshit, and you're just like, oh, so what is your world? Like, what do you see as your world? And they're like, oh, it's me, my immediate family, my extended family, and that's it. There is no Iraq. There is no, or they're like their clan or their tribe, but that's it. That's where it ends. And they're like, I don't understand what this Iraq you keep talking about is compared to like what we view it in the United States. Like, they didn't give a shit. Like, if it was outside, like for us, like if it was outside the Zidon, they didn't care. They could have cared if the rest of Iraq burned to the ground, so long as they had their fields and they were good. Like, so it was very hard to get them to be like, don't you have a sense of like, national pride? And they're like, what's that? Like we've been under dictators our entire lives. Like, we've been murdered by our dictators pretty much. Because he was some of the wild stories we would get from some of these guys. One guy brought out a book, and he had this like picture book of all the battles that have happened at his house with Saddam's forces, and then these other guys, and then like, foreign fighters. And he was one of the nicest dudes I ever met. But like, he was like, you guys don't understand. Like I'm just here. This is my house. I'm just going to fight whoever comes in, and this is the only thing I'm going to defend. And you're just like, yeah, there's going to be a problem here a little later on when we're like, hey, it's your country now, go for it. And they're like, yeah, we don't understand that concept nearly to the extent that the United States and most other countries do.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like that. Same with Afghanistan. It's very much tribal. They don't know what's going on 2 valleys over or whatever, or they don't care. Like
yeah, right.
know what's going on.
They don't care. Like they're just like, whatever, keep me out of it. Let me just have my, my little plot, and I'm good.
Yeah, and that's why some of the tactics that we use to try to change a country into a democracy or whatever you want to say don't really pan out because, like you said, they have no reason. Like, what are you talking about? National unity? Like, I don't know. Like an Afghan from Helmand is much different than one from a whole other area. That's a farming villages and stuff like that. You go up in like northern Afghanistan, it's more like mountains, and these guys, same thing, farming villages, but they're like now in mountainous areas and things. It's like, and the clans are different, the tribes are different. Some of them have beef that's gone back way, like forever. Yeah, you're not going to unify that. There's not really much you can do there. So after you finish this deployment, I mean, did you guys try to bring back some lessons learned to the other Marines at Second Recon or the other reconnaissance units?
Oh yeah. So like we had a violent shift of so I come back from first deployment. We basically I finally got to my pipeline of I went to jump school. I came back. I was slated for Ranger school. That got canked. And then I went right to sniper school. So in a very short amount of time, I was supposed to do all 3 schools back to back to back. But I ended up just going to jump in sniper. And so when we got back from sniper...
Hold on, real quick. Which sniper school did you go to?
Stone Bay in Lejeune.
How was that? Tell us about sniper school.
Oh, sniper school. It was one of the hardest but most fun things I've ever had. Like, it's funny because Parker, if you look at the Discovery Channel and you look at the becoming a sniper in the Marine Corps, Staff Sergeant Parker was the one who was running the hour-long special. He was my class commander in my class. And I watched that thing laughing my ass off because he was the funniest, he almost got kicked out for just fooling around and being like not serious. And then he's on the Discovery Channel being like this hard ass, which I love. Like we as a class, like, oh, I wish we would have prepped. They thought we were just a different breed. We were just the strangest class because like they hated recon at the time. They did not like. So for sniper school at Stone Bay, they had 1 recon sniper instructor and then like 3 infantry stay guys. The one guy who was there was an absolute shitbird and had been put there, I got found out later, because he was a shitbird to get him out of the way. Just kind of like to push him out of the teams. He didn't deploy after.
That's never good.
Yeah. And he didn't help us fucking at all. Like, so, because the way it was explained to me, they're like, oh yeah, so like you'll have a recon guy there in case you have questions, and like he'll be able to kind of like help you and like take you guys aside and stuff. He did none of that. He didn't give a shit. I didn't see him most of the time, which was fine by me. I ended up really, really loving the other instructors. We got along really well. I ended up becoming an honor grad.
Oh, nice.
Which was its own fun little contest. There was me and Parker. I don't know what he got up to, but we were going tit for tat, and so like it was like they said it was the most fun they had at sniper school, which I know is not supposed to be a fun thing, but we worked our asses off, but we never made it where we weren't laughing while we were doing it, and so like we had a great our attrition rate, they said, was usually better than most. We were very helpful. We'd stay after. I actually lived about 5 minutes from where we were training, Stone Bay, like outside in town. So like I would get up in the morning, like I would drink my coffee at 7, like driving this, and so most of the guys were staying there, but because I was a sergeant at the time, I got to drive in, and it was like a gentleman's course. It was like you got there at 8. We did some mission stuff, but for the most part, it was way more classroom time than people imagine. Like it was so much classroom time. learning physics, learning every part of that gun in and out. Like, and we took tests, like we took no joke fucking book tests where guys were failing out left and right just on the academic side, which is, I guess when people kind of like picture it, that's never the thing they think is going to knock people out of sniper school.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting was the easiest part. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like they taught you how to shoot. We shot so much. And so by the end, like you're a very proficient shooter. And that is a skill that you can always make better just with practice. The soft skills, though, stalking was one of the most fun, hardest things I think I've ever done in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of guys, like I grew up in the woods in New Hampshire. I lived in the White Mountains. Like I grew up as a bumpkin in the woods 24/7, you know, in camouflage. So like this was my like playground and I really enjoyed it. And so even when it was suck for me, I think I really enjoyed it more than some of the guys who were not used to that kind of stuff. But again, it was one of those courses that like here's the line, just get past it. Like, you know, it's very drawn out. They're not trying to kick you out. They want you to succeed if you can succeed. But guys are getting dropped left and right for stalking, shooting. Academics crushed most of them. But our class was so tight. Like I would say our upper 30% of our class, there was a group of us. We made our own company, our little guidon that was this giant pink flag that we carried everywhere with little tassels of color. And it said, athletes, not mathletes. And like, we were just a wild, fun group. And everyone academically, like we would actually have study sessions after school was out. Like we would make sure that like everyone who wanted to like got what they needed. And so it was definitely one of the most challenging schools as far as academically. Like Recon has a lot of academics that guys can fail out on, but sniper school, it was you had to know your shit. And it was like the Kim's games where we would I remember that we were in the middle of a classroom or we're learning something about something, and all of a sudden they just run in, they're like, everyone into the shower, and everyone runs into the gang shower. They have Metallica playing, and I mean like when I say full blast, I mean like way too loud. They're flicking the lights on and off, and there's the 10 items in the box. And you had 30 seconds with the lights flashing, Metallica going, and you're trying to memorize everything, you know, color, size, everything about it. And they're like, all right, get back. It was 2 days before they asked us the questions on that Kim's game. It was wild. It was so much. Again, it was so hard, but it was so rewarding and fun on the other end. Like I laughed a lot more in that course than everything I did in the schoolhouse at Recon, just because like there was a lot of time where they were teaching you a lot more. I feel like Recon was testing you.
Yeah.
Teaching a little, testing you a lot. Sniper school was a lot of teaching moments, and then they would test. But like, so it was very rewarding. But I guess I was very surprised how little shooting was the thing that was knocking guys out. Because again, everyone thinks sniper is just about shooting, but that was the thing that like, once you get on the range, like that wasn't the bad thing. It was definitely the other stuff was killing us a lot more. But we were a super tight class. I had a great time. I ended up getting honor grad. Our final X was the funniest like thing. Like we wrote our reports, so we wrote our operations reports and our everything. And if you didn't list it in your operations, like you didn't get it. So if you didn't put shoelaces, they took your shoelaces. You didn't put like, so we had guys who wrote down like 3 pieces of chewing gum, and they were like eating chewing gum, and like, so it was just this wild, fun group. Like they hazed the shit out of us, but they didn't break a lot of us. So I think they said later on, like our group did very well together and just having fun. And like, it was definitely not, I will say this. I've listened to some of the older snipers, I would say a generation before me, and they had some times that were just like, that was different. Like they were hazed and it was bad. Yeah. So I think I got a different flavor than some people do. And for me, it was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was actually the thing when I joined the military that I think I wanted the most. Because when I went 03-11, my plan was to try out for like a stay platoon. go to sniper school. That was my whole thing. That's what I wanted to do. So this was like kind of awesome because it was like I got to do it all. I got to do CQB, I got to do sniper, I got to do a lot of that stuff. And so it was awesome. And then when I actually then when we get to Iraq, to answer your question about what did we do different. So we finish up sniper school, I get out, and it's time to pick weaponry for Iraq for our next run out. So to put it in perspective, like how our platoon was running, for 4 teams, we had we had 6 snipers for 4 teams. So we had 2 teams with 2 snipers. My team had 1 sniper. And so, but like we were running like, 5-man groups with almost every group had a sniper. Every group had a heavy machine gun. Every group had, we were just bristling with stuff. And we did a lot more the second time. We stopped patrolling as much. We walked everywhere the second time. I have some, one of the pictures I sent you, like, I had a Black Hawk Ruck I bought because I had the Sasser, the 50 cal sniper, the Barrett 50 cal. That was what I picked as my thing. So my pig had a Stoner, the semi-automatic sniper rifle, silenced. So we would basically set up side by side where he was in outside of my cone of blowback. But we were like anti-vehicle, anti-personnel. And we did a whole lot more. Now we had data. Now we had a lot more idea of what they were going to do. So now we're doing counter IED stuff. So now we're getting back into that kind of recon like idea of, okay, they're going to try to blow us up. So let's get guys at these. So Intel started making us these awesome maps with like, okay, this is where all the IEDs are happening. This is where this is happening. And so there was a lot more proactive rather than reactive. Like we weren't just driving around looking for trouble.
Yeah.
We were very specifically sitting in places like we spent 7 days looking through a hole in a wall, one brick. We'd take out one brick through a sniper rifle. Me and my Marston, Lance Marston, going back and forth, just looking through that thing for a week, waiting for, because there was a break that they knew that they were going to come through. So it was a lot more thoughtful. It was we stopped driving around everywhere. We drove everywhere the first deployment, and we just got hit all the time. So the set, like I remember.
Were you in the same area? Were you in the same area? On
yeah,
the second
we went back to the Zidon. Yep, we went back to the Zidon. So it was actually super helpful for the veterans who'd already been over, because one thing that we found, especially the first, and what was shocking for the first time, is we had all this great aerial photography of the area that was 5 years old.
Yeah.
In 5 years, you are not looking at the same thing.
For sure.
So all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're going to cross this bridge. We're going to set up in this house. There wasn't a bridge and there wasn't a house. So we're running around at 2 a.m. looking for someplace to hide because sun's coming up and we're in the middle of pretty open stuff. So there was one mission where we literally laid in. One guy laid in a dry well. One guy laid like in a fetal position in a box, like just waiting for darkness again, because for miles you could see just flat out. So we got caught out because what was on the maps was not what was on the ground at all.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our first deployment was like realizing that we couldn't trust our intel as far as like what we were looking at. And so we had to like make up a lot. So when we went back the second time, a lot of the guys who'd been there, we knew, like, I could have walked blind on some of the fucking curves in the road and stuff because I knew where everything finally sat. Like, I was point man the first time, and I ended up becoming ATL when everyone got blowed up. So, but I had taken all that stuff from being point man, and I remembered where everything sat on the map in my head. So now all of a sudden, like, it flipped over where we got to be a lot more, I'm going to wait right here, knowing that there's only a few places they're going to put this IED if they're going to try to put it down or do this or do that. And so we got a lot more proactive. At the same time, rules of engagement changed completely. So first deployment, they were about, I would say, I think about 9 months apart. So just in 9 months of us not being there, it went from, if it has a cell phone, put it down. If it has a gun, put it down. Basically, like, just if it's a forward observer, put it down. If it's, to unless he's shooting directly at you, don't take the shot. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, so they could be shooting guns, but not just at us? Like, yeah, yeah. Unless you know they're actively engaging you personally. It's like, this is wild. So then the ROEs became super, super tight. Like, I mean, so tight that like it almost made everyone skittish because now we're trying to become like the first time you play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Second time, they're like, well, we're trying to be the nice guys. We're trying to be like, so we'd rather have something bad happen, and then worry about like, then you guys do something bad. You're like, okay. So our ROEs changed significantly where we got in a lot of phone calls or with Hire where we'd be on the hook with them and be like, hey, this is happening right now. Are we cleared to hot? And like, no, let's just watch it a little bit longer. You're like, okay, he's gone. They're like, okay,
We'll get them next time.
Yeah, well, they're like, okay, we'll send EOD. Yep, it was a bomb. Okay, so it was. We learned a lot, but also everything we learned by the time we got back there, the ROEs had like it's almost like changed the game again completely. Where the second time I felt we way better prepared. Like I will say this about Gunny Riv, the man was prepared. When we would take over a house, we had full windshields of Humvees in the back that we'd bring out and we'd put on every corner of the house. So every post on the house was actually sitting behind, 6 inches of ballistic glass. And then we'd sandbag. I mean, like we made mini fortresses.
Yeah.
This would take 6 hours every place we set up every night. It felt like the Roman Legion at that point, where you'd get there early you get there, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you could make sure it's clear. And then we would be building these little mini fortresses till daybreak.
Some of these compounds you were going into, were there occupants? And what did you do?
Sometimes. So a lot of the times we would put in a sniper team and we'd watch the house. House clear, we'd still have to go. Because there's actually, this sounds funny for people. It seems weird, but it was more dangerous when there wasn't people in it than when there was. When there wasn't people, it sometimes would be rigged with low grade like PE stuff like that. Like they'd bring them to blow, like they were like a trap. So we had to be really careful there. On the flip side, if someone was there, they were very used to, and this is kind of sad, but they were very used to being displaced. So we'd roll in and we had our interpreter. We actually had a platoon interpreter, which was very, very handy. And he's like, hey, listen, we're going to take over your house for X amount of days. Do you have anyone to stay with? And they're like, oh, yeah, my aunt lives down the street. You're like, okay, go live with them for a while. You'll know when we're gone because you won't see anything on the roof. And they would leave most of the time. So that was on, like, I would say the platoon side. On the team side, and I tell a kind of funny story when I had dysentery on a on an Overwatch mission. Where we took over this people's houses and we kept them in the house and we just not locked them in a room, but we put them in a room. We're like, hey, don't move. And we put cans up against the door and they're like, seriously, please don't move. We're going to be like kind of on the roof for just 12 hours. Cause there was a very specific IED brother team that had been placing. And this was where Intel said that they were going to be. So we set up on this guy's roof and it was, I would say, from between 10 at night and 4 a.m. That we were there, and they just stayed in the room. So we would go in, we would search the room, make sure there was no weapons, no cell phones. Hey, do you have anything? And we'd take that, we'd put it outside the room. We'd give them food, we'd give them water, we'd leave them money, a whole basket of goodies. So when we left, like I would knock, and then we would just exfil and be like, hey, please stay in the room for 1 more hour. Please don't come out. We'll be gone by the time you come out. We found that was safer because the one thing that started happening is, like I said, so the Zidon was very tribal. Mm-hmm. If you killed one of them, if you were a foreign fighter and you killed a Zidonese, we'll call them, the whole area would turn on you and they would fucking kill you. I mean, they were lopping heads off. They were doing it. So they made very sure to keep them happy or try to minimize damage to them. Yeah. So it was like a 3-way battle. So if we were going into houses that were either occupied or we knew someone had just left, the chances of it, like one, just getting blown up was just very low. Or people firing on us just randomly. Or so for the most part, people didn't even know we were there. You know, they might tell their neighbor the next day, like, well, we had a sniper team on our roof for 6 hours last night. But for the most part, we were trying to be as little footprint as we wanted to. That was like a 3-man team we did it with.
Yeah.
So one of us would hold security down on the stairwell to the door, and the other two would be up on the OP, and we just rotate out, and then we just leave. Platoons, we would usually send sniper teams in. That's what we learned. So second deployment, we would send in platoon or a sniper team early, watch the house for 24, 48 hours, sweep it completely, and then we would move in as either a platoon or sometimes even a company. We had one company op that was just, I would say, the world's worst company op ever, where it was like we put all our eggs in this one basket, and that basket had 2 roads in or out, and they rigged both roads. So when we came out, they fucked us up so bad. So it was like one of those things that, like, in a normal battle, you would be like, oh man, I hope we get all of our guns, and I hope we get all of our people in one spot, because then we're like this impenetrable. And it was reverse. It was like, man, I hope it's just me and you alone, in the bush, where at least I know where I am, that nothing's gonna be, I can walk anywhere. So we were walking that second deployment. God, we were walking what looked like on a map, like 2 clicks, and all of a sudden you get out on the terrain and it's either soft sand or like it's sucking mud, and it's taking you 6 to 8 hours to get set up over 2 clicks. But then, like, I would take that any day of the week over driving.
Oh yeah.
By the end, I would like, let me walk for 12 hours in dark, tripping over, breaking shit, and get to where I'm going knowing I'm going to be safe, rather than getting in that truck, getting in that. Like, even air support sucked. We had one helo raid that we got to the launch pad. We're all ready, and with just black smoke, canceled. Like, yeah, it's real dirty right now. Like, sandstorm, go home. We had probably like 4 of those where we're going to do these helo raids, and we're getting ready to do air ops, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, it's not good conditions. It's like, man, it doesn't seem like it's ever good conditions for helos.
Yeah, the dusty environment in the desert is definitely not conducive for helicopter flights.
And so the few helo raids we did do, where I literally I wasn't. And it was so funny because me and my friend talked about it later. He's like, I was more worried about the helo ride to the raid than when I was also lead breacher. So I had C4, just I looked like a tummy's full of C4 on my pouch and everything. He's like, you're a walking bomb and you're more worried about the flight over. I was like, dude, I don't like helicopters. I don't have any control. I kept watching these things go down, like because of dust. And as soon as we would hit ground, it was like, thank God we're about to go into a firefight.
Yeah.
Because that helo was scaring the shit out of me.
I remember riding in I can't remember. I think it was during my advisor team deployment. Maybe no, it wasn't. I don't remember. Either way, I was riding in an EOD vehicle, and I was sitting on top of I was in the back of an MRAP, and under my seat was just like pounds of C4 that they would use to do the to bip the IEDs, blow in place the IEDs. Yeah, it was definitely like, all right, well, if something happens to our truck, I guess I'm toast.
So when we went over first deployment, I was lead breacher then too. We were lead Humvee. We were suicide vehicle, which sucked already. But then I had to have all my charges ready. So it was just in the front. There was like that weird front bumper they had on some of the Humvees. We made sure we got one of those, and it was just piled full of like C4, and you're just like, I don't know if this is going to be far enough away from us, or if it's just going to push the engine block into us. Like,
probably,
hope we don't get. Yeah, right. We're like, I guess we'll just take our chances when it happens.
It's pretty stable.
Were just like, I didn't want it in the cab with us, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, C4 is obviously super stable, but it definitely feels weird when you're cruising around with a bunch of it.
Yeah, right. And you're like, I just remember, like, because I had so the one thing again in my unit, like, I had a bunch of different vests for a bunch of different things, and one of them had this big front pouch where I had all my charges and my detonator and everything right here, so I could just kind of pull out. And I realized I just basically have this, like, bulletproof vest full of C4. And it's like, I know it's probably not going to go off because of that, but it's still a weird feeling to be walking around and everyone would just kind of look at you different. Like, could you just go a little further away from me than where you're standing right now? You're like, all right.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, dude, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Tell us about your book and where people can find that, and where they can find your social media and stuff.
So this is my book. It's called Valhalla Boys. It's a lot about my first deployment with that super team. We took a lot. Like I said, it was like a 25% casualty rate. It was just a different kind of war. But it goes for a lot of people. If you guys want to know about like boot camp, and it goes in like I would say 2/3 or in thirds. The first third is basically boot camp. The second third is recon training. If you ever wanted to know like what recon goes through and their kind of training and stuff like that. So it's me kind of going through that stuff. And then the last third is us in Iraq, or I'd say maybe the last half is us in Iraq and stories from there. This actually started when I was at the VA for PTSD. So there's some pretty horrific shit that happened to our team in our platoon. So I'd been going to see a therapist, and one of the things they have you do is write it down over and over and over and over. And so I'd written down a couple of these stories over and over, and was getting help and stuff. And one of my friends was like, "Hey man, you got any funny stories? Because these are fucking just awful." And I was like, "Yeah, I got some funny ones too." They're like, "Why don't you write those down and put them together?" So I did. And about a year ago, I run in a gym. This is my gym, obviously. But I was working, and then one of my clients happened to be like a book reviewer professionally. Like that's what she did. So we were just talking books, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this book." I didn't really do anything with it. She's like, "Well, let me read it." So she read it, and she's like, "This can get published in 10 seconds." So she actually did a lot of the legwork and stuff like that. And she's like, "This is great." So I sent it to Casemate Publishing. They picked it up. It's been selling like hotcakes, which has been phenomenal. Because like, again, this is like a weird pain point. So it's not like my favorite book that I've written. But it's doing really, really, really well. I'm very excited for it as far as like, it's written. It's not your normal. So this is I'll say caveat. It's not your normal war book. It's written like a novel, or let's say more like not fictionalized, but like more like
storytelling than.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So I write different. I write like a storyteller. So it reads more like a normal novel than it does like if you ever read some of those war books from like World War II or even Vietnam, where they're just really dry and like I would say the first half of this is a fucking hilarious book, which actually makes the turn of it really bad. That's what everyone said, that like it's a bad roller coaster where it goes up, 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 and then it just drops. It's like, well, welcome to deployment. Like,
That's
welcome to yeah. So that did really well. You can get this on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere you can buy books. That's going really well. I think they're picking up the audio rights soon, she told me, which is super exciting. We've only been out about 3 months now, and I'm on like 2 of the Amazon lists. I'm like second and third for sales on 2 of the Amazon. Yeah, so it's been going great. It's definitely, the other caveat I'll put, it's definitely polarizing, because I write from I wrote this right after, because I wrote the initial stories right after my deployment, and right after I got out, where I was having like a lot of like bad PTSD and stuff like that. So there's some not say questionable, but like there's just some moments that are really vulnerable, that if you were there, you understand. But some of the people reading it, like, "Oh, you're a monster," because you're having these thoughts, and you're like, "Okay, I need you to go into a war and watch your friends be blown apart to bits and not get angry and not get like, like." So it's funny, because just the reactions to people, all the reviewers love it. Some of the people, if you were there.
That's good, man. No, I think that's good. I think that raw, reality is something that people want in a book. I don't want you to sanitize it. I want you to tell me what it was like. But 2, I think people should know what it was like, and it should be that raw feeling to it.
I had a moment of doubt when I was doing the editing with this, and my dad, I was like, should I just take out some of that stuff? And he's like, absolutely not. That's not what happened to you. And people need to know what it's like.
Yeah.
Like, don't make this another, like, because there's a lot of like, I hate to say, not like uplifting war stories that are like, oh, like we did badass things, and that's great, and there's some badasses who had to do some cool stuff. This is not that story. Like this is about, like, I would say almost like Paradise Lost type stuff, where like this didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. It really brought up a lot of stuff later. I lost a lot of good friends, like a lot of good friends. One of my best friends lost his leg, stuff like that. So like, and it really fucked me up for a while.
Well, it's good to do that out. It's good to have that outlet, man. And
right, dude. And then a side note, I know you're trying to finish up, but like, I just went to that retirement party about like 6 months ago, and I've been holding on to a lot of these feelings for God, like almost 16 years, something like that. And then everyone got drunk, and then everyone started telling stories and crying, and you're just like, oh my God, it wasn't just me, like, oh. And it was like a huge turning point in my life where like finally everyone got together again after, going through stuff together that no human being should go through. And it was super cathartic. Like it was beautiful, in fact. And so like it made me happier about the whole thing, because there's some stuff in here that like I had a hard time. Like I couldn't even look at one of my friends because of what happened to him, and it would make me like sick to my stomach every time I even thought about him. So just having that moment with him, being able to cry with him and like, hugging it out and stuff like that, like it meant a lot to me.
That's good, man.
So there's my that's that book, and then I have a fantasy series. I'm gonna say it's more military fantasy for if you guys are like, so it's based on special operations type shit. So it's like a fantasy series where they're all kind of like specialists, like one's a sniper, but he's stuff like that. But it's actually based on my war experience, so it's again a little dark at points, a little like kind of raw. And that's been selling really well too. So yeah, that's what I've been doing right now.
What a cool gig, man. I think it's great. I think people got to find an outlet when they get out. Either stay in constant contact with people that you served with, write a book, go on a podcast, start a podcast. I think letting, people talking stuff out is what more guys need, and they don't realize it because they don't want to talk about stuff. And part of it, and I get there's a lot of people that are like, well, no one will ever understand what it was like or what I was feeling at the time. And I'm like, you're right. Yes. But you also can't blame people outside of your circle or civilians or whatever for not understanding the military when you're not even willing to talk to them about it and what it was really like. You can't on one hand complain that they don't know what it's like and that they, whatever, but you won't tell them. And I think that's what these podcasts and these books and all this stuff is good, because it's expanding people's understanding of what the military is, what it does. Like you said, when you came in, you didn't realize there were so many different jobs that are in the military. There's so many jobs, there's so many missions, there's so many things that happen every day in the military that most people don't even realize. And I think it's imperative that we not only educate the public, but also save our stories for our families and our, that's family history, so maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, your great grandkid or something like that will find this interview and we'll get to hear you talk about your experience firsthand. How invaluable is that? I mean, what would you give to hear your great grandfather talk about their experience in like a war or something like that? That's crazy. And that's invaluable stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I look forward, we talked before the show, we'll have to set something up down the road, have you come back on and we'll get into some more stuff. Everyone, thanks for checking out the show. My website's jcramergraphics.com. My Instagram is Former Action Guys, Former Action News. Check those out. And that's it, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, man.